30 years ago, the Chinese military could not stop two American aircraft carriers from sailing straight through the Taiwan Strait. Today, that same military operates the largest navy in the world by number of ships, is building a nuclear-powered supercarrier bigger than anything America has ever put to sea, and has assembled a missile force that can reach targets more than 11,000 kilometers from Beijing. This is not the story of one war. This is the story of how a nation rebuilt its entire military machine in one generation and quietly redrew the balance of power across Asia. To understand where China's military is today, you have to go back to a single moment of humiliation. In 1995, and again in 1996, China fired missiles into the waters near Taiwan, trying to intimidate the island ahead of its first direct presidential election. Washington's answer was simple. The United States sent two aircraft carrier battle groups into the region, and Beijing could do nothing about it. China's military at the time had no way to see those carriers coming, no way to reach them, and no way to stop them. For a rising power that considered Taiwan part of its own territory, it was a devastating lesson. And it triggered a decision at the top of the Chinese state. This would never happen again. What followed was 30 consecutive years of rising military spending, funded by one of the fastest-growing economies in human history. China's official defense budget has climbed from roughly $10 billion in the mid-1990s to nearly $280 billion in 2026, a nominal 7% increase over the year before, and part of an unbroken streak of budget growth stretching back 3 decades. But even that number understates the real picture. Independent researchers who track paramilitary forces, defense research spending, and military pensions that Beijing keeps off its headline budget put China's actual military spending well above $300 billion a year, making it the second largest defense budget on Earth. Just since 2015, the budget has effectively doubled, and defense now eats up a growing share of total government spending. This is not a country arming itself for a single fight. This is a sustained, decades-long industrial buildup, and it is only accelerating. Nowhere is that buildup more visible than at sea. In 1995, the Chinese Navy was a coastal defense force built to protect its own shoreline and little else. Today it is the largest navy in the world by number of ships. The transformation happened in 3 steps. First came the Liaoning, commissioned in 2012, an unfinished Soviet hull that China bought, rebuilt, and turned into its first aircraft carrier. Then came the Shandong in 2019, China's first carrier actually built on Chinese soil. And in November 2025, the Fujian entered service, a carrier with electromagnetic catapults, capable of launching heavier, more capable aircraft than either of its predecessors, carrying an air wing of roughly 60 aircraft. Just months after commissioning, China operated 2 of its carriers together in the waters off the first island chain, conducting hundreds of launches and landings, something only a handful of navies on Earth have ever managed. And China isn't stopping there. A 4th carrier, the Type 004, is already under construction at the Dalian shipyard. It's expected to be nuclear-powered, displace up to 120,000 tons, and be larger than America's own USS Gerald R. Ford. The Pentagon's own assessment is blunt. China is aiming for a fleet of 9 aircraft carriers by 2035, the largest carrier buildup anywhere in the Indo-Pacific since the Second World War. The story in the air is just as dramatic. China's 5th-generation stealth fighter, the J-20, went from a fleet of roughly 50 aircraft in 2020 to an estimated 300 by the middle of 2025, and by some assessments, close to 500 by mid-2026. For years, the J-20's growth was limited by one thing: engines. Early aircraft flew on Russian-made power plants, which meant Moscow effectively controlled how fast China could build them. That constraint is gone. China now builds its own WS-10 and WS-15 engines, and commercial satellite imagery has identified 5 active J-20 production lines at Chengdu, turning out somewhere between 100 and 120 aircraft every year. J-20s have now been spotted in all 5 of China's theater commands, replacing aging Cold War-era fighters across the entire force. Some analysts believe the fleet could approach 1,000 aircraft by 2030. Whatever the exact number, the message is the same. China has gone from importing fighter technology to mass-producing its own stealth air force on a timeline that has surprised even its rivals. But the most consequential transformation may be the one that gets the least attention: China's missile force. The People's Liberation Army Rocket Force now fields an estimated 3,500 missiles, a stockpile that grew by nearly 50% in just 4 years. At the center of that arsenal are 2 weapons Chinese state media openly calls by their nicknames: the DF-21D and the DF-26, the so-called Guam Express, a missile capable of striking American forces on Guam more than 4,000 kilometers from the Chinese coast. Layered behind them are newer hypersonic weapons, the DF-17, the DF-27, and anti-ship hypersonic missiles like the YJ-21, designed specifically to hold American aircraft carriers at risk from ever greater distances. And this isn't just about conventional weapons. China's nuclear arsenal has crossed 600 warheads, and by American estimates, is growing by roughly 100 warheads a year. Satellite imagery has revealed the construction of more than 300 new missile silos across China's western deserts. In 2025, at a parade marking 80 years since the end of the Second World War, China publicly displayed a new missile, the DF-61, widely believed to be a new intercontinental ballistic missile. Even a wave of internal military corruption purges, including the removal of senior rocket force commanders, has not slowed this pace, according to the Pentagon's own assessment. So what does all of this actually change? For 30 years, American military planners could operate in the waters near China with relative confidence. That confidence is gone. The range of missiles, like the DF-26, now pushes American ships and aircraft further and further from the Chinese coast, complicating logistics and stretching supply lines that were never designed for this kind of distance. Japan, Australia, and South Korea are recalculating their own defense postures around missile ranges that didn't exist a decade ago. And Taiwan itself has responded by racing to build its own missile arsenal, reaching a goal of producing 1,000 missiles a year 2 full years ahead of schedule. A bet on asymmetric defense rather than matching China ship for ship. But it would be a mistake to read this as a simple story of China overtaking the United States. China's carrier fleet still can't launch and recover aircraft at the same time the way American carriers can. Its fleet of J-35 stealth fighters built for carrier duty numbers only in the dozens today, nowhere near enough to fill the decks it's building. Its supply and refueling ships remain limited and would be vulnerable targets in any real conflict. What's happening isn't a finished transformation. It's a fast-closing gap. And depending on who you ask, that gap is closing faster than almost anyone expected. China has set itself 2 deadlines. By 2027, the 100th anniversary of the People's Liberation Army's founding, it wants what it calls its centenary goal achieved. By 2035, it wants its armed forces fully modernized. And it has been getting there in 3-decade sprints, from a force that couldn't stop 2 American carriers in 1996 to a Navy building carriers bigger than America's own in the space of a single generation. Whatever happens next in the Indo-Pacific, over Taiwan,
over the South China Sea, over the islands and waterways both powers claim as their own. It will not be decided by whichever side has more history behind it. It will be decided by whichever side adapts faster. And for the first time in decades, that is no longer a question with an obvious answer.
If you want more deep dives like this one, real military history, real numbers, no fluff, subscribe to War and Military History and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because every conflict has a cause, every border has a cost, and every war leaves something behind.